Greetings, friends. As always, it's an honor to welcome you back to Rick's Garage. Today I'm going to be replacing the struts on this '06 Altima. Make and model is not that important. The procedure is pretty close to the same on most any vehicle. I'm going to show the removal and replacement on the right side of the vehicle, the passenger side. There's no need to show both. The procedure is pretty much identical. So friends, there are two ways you can go with this job. As you know, my channel is geared toward you do-it-yourself guys working in your own driveway. So for that reason, I strongly suggest that you purchase a loaded strut assembly like you see here. That way it's just a simple bolt and unbolt. You can do it with ordinary tools. You don't have to worry about using a dangerous spring compressor, and they are dangerous. Now, for those of you that are a little more adventurous, you can buy just the strut and use a strut spring compressor like you see here. This one's probably as safe as any you're going to use. This is made by the Powerbuilt company. It's made to clamp into a bench vise. Now, I am not going to show in this video how to use this device. However, I am going to link a video at the end of this video that actually does show how to use this device for those of you who are interested in purchasing one or learning to use one. So for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to simply unbolt the strut and bolt the new one in. It's fairly late in the evening here, and all I had planned for tonight was to bring the car in, get it up on the jack stands, and spray some penetrating oil on all the nuts and bolts that I'm going to be loosening tomorrow. So I've gone ahead and done that. Before we get too far along, I want to have a little safety moment. As you can see, I've got heavy-duty jack stands supporting the car on a solid level surface. I've got the emergency brakes set, and I hope you can see this, I've got the rear wheels chalked. Also, I recommend having a pair of safety glasses handy. So we're going to let these bolts and nuts that I sprayed with my penetrating oil soak overnight, and we'll get started on this job in the morning. I hope you enjoy. Okay friends, it's the next morning and we're ready to start work on this job. So the first thing we're going to try to undo is the stabilizer link that's attached to the strut. Now, this is probably the most difficult thing you're going to have to try to remove in this whole job. These tend to spin around. And your best chance to get a wrench on the back is to turn the wheel all the way to the left. That way you have a little better access to get a wrench on it. That seems to be coming out okay. All right. Okay, next we're going to drive out this clip that holds the brake hose on. Just take an old screwdriver and just give it a few whacks and it'll pop right out of there. Then you can, there we go, take the hose right out. There we go, that's clear. Now next, if your car was equipped with anti-lock brakes, this one is not. You would have, the wires would be clipped into these little receptacles here. There's one in the front, there's one over here in the back that you can't see. So you would carefully disconnect your ABS wire and get that out of the way. Next, we're going to remove the two bolts that hold the strut to the steering knuckle. This side, it would be a 19 millimeter. On the other side, it's a 17 millimeter. I've already got a wrench on that. Yeah, okay, that one's out. Now what I'm going to do before I attempt to take out the bottom one is I'm going to stick a screwdriver in there so that thing don't come flopping apart on me while I'm trying to work. I had to put a little bit of an extension on my impact wrench to get at the bottom one. There we go. See how the whole thing wanted to flop down on us? So by that way, by having the screwdriver in there, that prevented that from happening. May have to poke that one out with a little punch. Now keep in mind, all while I'm doing this, I'm wearing safety glasses. There we go. Okay, and like I said, this screwdriver kept anything from moving until we're ready. So everything down here is disconnected, and now we've got to go up top and remove the strut mount bolts. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and remove the strut mount bolts. There's no danger of it going anywhere because, as you recall, we've got a screwdriver stuck in one of the holes down toward the bottom. So let's give this a try. These are 14 millimeter. Crack it loose. Okay. It's like someone had put anti-seize on those. That's a good idea. We'll do that when we put everything back. And here's the last one. Okay, well, it kind of sunk down on us a little bit, but that's okay. So it looks like this thing's ready to come out. We're ready to try to pull this thing out of there. So I'm going to pull my screwdriver out. And I'm going to let this flop this way a little bit. I don't want it to come out too much because I don't want the axle to pull out. There we go, that's off. And it's a little bit awkward, but it seems to be coming out quite nicely. There we are, we got the whole assembly out. Friends, off camera, I'm going to go ahead and use the strut compressor and swap out this strut. I'm going to reuse the spring and the mount. I'm not going to show this because, as I mentioned earlier, I strongly recommend you buy the entire strut assembly for safety. Now, if you feel confident enough to compress the spring and change out the strut, I will link a video at the end of this one showing you how to do that with this power-built strut compressor. Okay friends, I'm ready to put this strut assembly back in the car. Now, one thing I want to mention, this bolt pattern is not symmetrical, meaning they're not even, so it can only go in one way. So what I've done is I've put a little doodots right here on these two studs, and correspondingly I've put 2 dots up on the mount area of the car, so I will know where it goes as I try to put it in place. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I've got one of the nuts in my hand, and I've marked the 2 holes in the strut tower that match the studs I marked on the strut assembly. So let's see how this goes. I'm going to try to lift it up in there, and then once I get it up in there, I'm going to attempt to get one of the nuts started. No, there we go. All right, let's get one of these nuts started so it won't fall out. Great. Okay, so it took a little bit of elbow grease, but I got it done. So now we'll go ahead and get the others started. I'm going to leave them loose. I'll tighten them up afterwards. Okay, so it's in place. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to throw a vice grip on this bracket here, and I'm going to try to turn the strut so it matches up with the steering knuckle. Okay, that was easy enough. So now it looks like I'll have to put some kind of jack underneath that to bring it up so it matches the holes on the bottom of the strut. Now I'm not going to mess around with trying to get the bolts in right now. If I'm lucky enough to get it to line up, I'm going to throw a screwdriver in there to hold it in place, and then we'll work on the bolts. Okay, friends, I've got a jack underneath the control arm. So I'm going to try to bring this thing up a little bit and see if we can get it to line up. Looks like it might happen. Looks like I need to turn the strut a little bit. There we go. See if I can get that strut to turn a little bit. There we go. Yeah, that was a lot easier than I expected. So now I've got this screwdriver holding it in place, and we're going to try to get the strut bolts in now. Okay, off camera I moved the screwdriver down to the lower hole. I thought it might be easier to get the strut bolt into the upper one, and indeed it was. There. Now let's see if we can get the lower one in. If we're fortunate enough to be able to get the lower one in, then we're kind of home free with this job. Okay, hopefully you can still see what I'm doing here. I'm going to try to get this bottom bolt in. Looks like I almost have it. There we go. Give it a few taps with a hammer. Okay, it was a little awkward because the brake hose was in the way. Speaking of the brake hose, let's attach that now. Put a little bracket in there. I mean, a little locking clip. We're going to give that a few love taps. Yeah, that's on. Now let's turn the wheel the opposite direction, and we're going to try to get our stabilizer link back in. All right, now I'm going to attempt to stick the sway bar back in. Yeah, that's in place. So that's okay. Now what I'm going to do, because these sway bars can become so difficult to remove, I should say sway bar link, I'm going to put a little anti-seize on it. Little dab of anti-seize there, little dab of anti-seize on the two nuts, the strut bolts. And up top, I'm going to loosen those screws one at a time and put a little anti-seize on them as well. So for the most part, this job is done. I just got to bolt up the strut bolts here. I got to bolt up the stabilizer link and tighten up the 3 bolts up top in the shock tower. I'm actually going to call this job done. I don't need to bore you with watching me tightening bolts. One thing I would say that there are torque specifications for these bolts down here. It's about 105 pounds. If you don't have a torque wrench, the tightness is about the same you'd put a lug nut on your tire, on your wheel. So tighten these about the same as you would one of your lug nuts on your wheels. And up top, those nuts for the upper shock tower, those are supposed to be torqued to about 30 pounds, but Just put them reasonably tight. You'll be fine. I want to thank you once again for watching Rick's Garage. Before I go, I'm going to post 2 videos to your left. One will be the video I promised you on how to use the Powerbuilt Strut compressor. And the other will be something I hope you find of interest. And to your right, as always, will be a picture of my avatar in the form of my trusty German Shepherd. By all means, feel free to click on that, should you wish to subscribe to my channel. So thanks again. We hope to see you all very, very soon.